welcome back to Darkest Dungeon. There's a lot to love in this game, and a lot that really just upsets your soul and hurts and painful and misery and all of the above. And I experienced them all in our recent day. We are close to entering the Darkest Dungeon. One thing that became very clear to me from people talking who played the game before, because we've had a lot of viewers who've come in to like, why is Darkest Dungeon 1 like popping off on Twitch? So a lot of new viewers who are like, what the hell is going on here? Is that there's so many people who've played this game for maybe 100 plus hours or whatever and have never been to the Darkest Dungeon. That's not what they enjoy about it. They enjoy making new builds, new characters, and trying them out, and then maybe like their favorite character dies, or they're one they've invested a lot in, and they're like, oh, I'll just restart, like as if it's a bricked save. But so far, that's a fine way to play, is I've been able to recover everything, even if it's gone horribly, horribly wrong. And on this day, it did go badly. It did go badly, but at the same time, there's positives, and that's why I really love this, is that even when things are so bleak and so bad, there's a pathway to salvation. And if you follow that pathway and you're like, okay, let's just assess what happened. How do we fix this? So the situation I ended up in was really weird. Because I'd lost Sial, who was part of my A team that's been around since the very start. And that A team was so strong. Like, they tackled nearly everything. And the only time they got into trouble was when I went to the Weald, I believe it's called, or the Warrens, where everything was like blight resistant, and they just got eradicated because my main damage source was blight damage, and I didn't have any trinkets which buffed blight chance to land, and so I couldn't overcome their blight resistance, and I just couldn't do any damage, and they just wiped me out in the first battle. So I've adapted to that, right? It's a learning lesson. It's like, okay, if we go here, we need to be aware of this, and I've got my notepad with all my notes and stuff on it. And so I approached the day with the idea of, okay, we're going to the Darkest Dungeon. This is the plan. And how do I get there? Well, I need to rebuild a strong team because I had a really mix of levels with no, in my mind, cohesive units in there. Although after now playing for, I think we're on like 40 hours or close to that, is you can see is that actually you don't need to follow that sort of like MMO style Holy Trinity of like a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS. In fact, there's some combos due to the position swapping where people get massively powerful attacks, but it keeps changing their position. But if you utilize that to your advantage so that, yes, they're going to move back, but then they're going to push somebody else forward, and that allows them to do something amazing, then you could do some really wonderful things. And I discovered that by being forced due to the level differences and the fact the game prevents you from doing certain content. If you over-level it or under-leveled, it just won't let you do that mission. The characters will just refuse. Is that I ended up with like a 2 highwayman team. I was like, what do I do with this? The highwaymen, no, grave robbers. I ended up with like a double grave robber, like a tank, a healer, and double grave robbers. I was like, this is just a bad synergy, isn't it? And then it was like, oh, actually no, because they have an ability called lunge, which can only be done from a specific position. It's like 3rd or 4th place, but it shoots you to the front of the queue, but it does massive damage. And the point is, when they're at the front, they can't really do anything. They have to do something called a shadow step, which moves them back 2 rows. But then they get an enormous, like 80% damage buff for their next lunge. So they keep cycling around. And then after like the first couple of battles, like, wait a minute. I could change this around a little bit. And I can have them start in the back, open with a lunge, which in most cases eradicated one of the members of the enemies that spawned, or did huge damage to them. And then the other one could do the same. And then I cycled back the shadow steps while the rest of the team sort of CCs and holds the line for a second, for a couple of rounds, and then you kind of kill everybody. Like on bosses, I was getting like crits of like 56 or 63, which is like half the boss HP, like absolutely calamitous damage. So I was like, oh, okay, this is starting to make a lot of sense. And the same thing happened again with the highwayman who had point blank shot, which only hits the front row, but it does massive damage and shifts them back. So what I could do is like, oh, if I start the team with the highwayman always at the front, then the opening salvo like wipes somebody out and then moves them back to that supporting role where they still do massive damage. So I started shifting and moving people around like that, and I started like going, okay, I'm going to put like mega damage trinkets onto this say highwayman or one of my grave robbers, And they're just going to, they're the shredders. They're the absolute shredders of the team. And this was working really well. I was so proud of myself, guys. I was so proud of myself that I spent a long time considering so many different options and things that I had. That my team started leveling up. I started getting some money. I was in a really good shape. And then the point of the day where it all fell apart. Every now and again, some sort of mission appears. And it'd be like, hey, there's like a giant bat that's near the town. You should deal with the giant bat. And I didn't have to because it was like a level 5 or 6 mission. And I do have level 5s, but they're underpowered. And by that, I mean they don't have enough armor and weapons. I definitely slacked on blacksmith and armory upgrades. And so, yes, they have the levels, like they have the experience. But when they're in those battles, they just take too much damage or they don't do enough damage. It's as simple as that. They're just not making a dent while they're getting hammered at the same time. And yeah, I'm sure there's some setups that get around this or some technical play at a high level that beats this, but that was what I was finding. So I was like, okay, and what I need to do is use my lower down teams because my level 5s are unable to play effectively in my mind because they just get hammered, is use these low down teams to collect the resources needed to buff the blacksmith and armorsmith so that they're in a much better shape. I was on my last mission to get a couple of deeds or whatever, which would have allowed this armorsmith upgrade. I'm just trying to set the scene for how devastating what happened was. I think I needed 30 or 43 deeds, and I had 40. So literally a low tier 0 mission would have got me the deeds I needed to move them up in armor grade to level 4. So I was like, oh, cool, we're there. And then we can start doing the level 5 missions, which will give multiplicatively more resources. Because the difficulty you run into is like, oh, I'll use my like level 3s. But they do their content and they level up to the point where I had a bunch of level 5s at this point. I was like, okay, I can't really go forward. And I'm sort of cock-blocking myself on being able to do content. So I need to use my like level 0s and things. And it was at this point that and previously when like these missions have popped up, I hadn't had to do them. It's like a bonus mission that probably gives you a sick killer trinket, but like I didn't have the characters to do it. And it said that Wolf is attacking the town. So this mission had popped up. I'd never seen it before. Wolf is attacking the town. You should do something about it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I checked it. It was like a level 5 mission. I was like, well, we're just going to die. Like, if we do this mission, and we're so close to getting this armor upgrade, is that the best play, actually, is to ignore this mission for now. It'll pop back up again like it did with the Crow, and then we can tackle the scenario. So I built my team out to go and get some deeds, these last 3 that I needed, and as I clicked the button, it went, just to let you know, if you ignore Wolf attacking, then all your upgrades are going to roll back. Your town is going to be raised, and all the upgrades you've invested in and farmed in are going to be rolled back. And I was like, if this happens, I am so much further behind where I already am, and it's really hard for me to rescue this situation. So I kind of felt like I haven't got a choice, but I have to try and tackle this. I have to. And so I was then like, who do I send in here? Who do I send in? Well, I had my A-team of people who've been around since the very start of the game, which was Turtle, Cial had died, but Turtle, Raven, and Brackers. And I then was like, who's going to take this second spot? So I did misread the comment, and it said Wolf is attacking, is what I read, instead of Wolf. So I worked under the impression that Wolf was a beast. A big beast is attacking, because a crow had attacked before. It kind of made sense to me. And I was like, okay, it's a big beast that's attacking me. And obviously I'm blind, so I don't know what it does. And I was like, okay, so let's assume some things. Like, it's a wolf. It's probably going to cause a lot of bleed, right? Shredding claws with the damage types in the game. It's likely to be bleeding my characters and clawing at them. And a howl. It's probably going to howl, which will cause a lot of stress. So I was like, okay, this is the situation. So I built this team. And I thought probably like 15, 20 minutes, deciding the order of people to be. Because I was like, if I'm going to send them in, I need to give them the best possible chance of survival. And then I provisioned them out. And I gave them everything. I was like, why hold back on resources? If I can remove Blight with anti-venom, clear the bleeds with bandages, things like that. I should just take everything with me so I can just spam consumables to help me out and get through this. So in I go. And then I realized that this entire map works very differently in that you just have choices, but you can't see the layout of the hamlet. It doesn't tell you where to go. So it was like, you go left or right. I'll go right. And then it was like left or right again. I was like, well, looking at the map layout, it looks like it's a circle. And then it comes off. So I think we got lucky, guys. I think we got lucky because we went right and then that leads off to a side, whereas the left takes you back to sort of perpendicular with the bottom, meaning that that was probably a circle. So if you went left, you would circle back around and then have to come round again to go to the right. So I was like, I think we got a good idea. So I went off to the right, fought another battle. The battles were really weird. The trash in the tunnels was like levels 1s that my team was just crushing. But then in the rooms, they were like very sort of mean and nasty enemies. I was like, okay, so it looks like it's kind of leveling up per room. So it's starting at like level 1, and then in the rooms, it's like level 3, and then probably just before the boss, it's like level 5. So I was like, okay, I think that's what's happening here. Got a nice chest with a really good piece of armor in it. It was like 15 dodge or something. And I was like, that's crazy. 15 dodge is massive. So I was like, I'll stick that on Turtle, the guy up front, because my plan was to mark him and buff his protection, and I give him some protection trinkets. So he was going to like bait everything, but hopefully dodge a lot of it. This all made sense to me. So my team was looking pretty rough. And I was like, I need to camp, but we can't camp. We can't do it. So I was like, okay, we're not in a good place, but we have to keep pushing forward because of the code. And then obviously part of the idea was if I leave, then my town is going to get razed. So I need to try and tackle the boss. Then I got to the boss. After realizing this was a dead end, I was like, oh my god, this is a dead end. We fought extra battles. Now I need to go back and go up to somewhere else and fight more battles. Then I got to the boss who was not a wolf. And I was like, oh my god, this is not a wolf. What do I do? And I'm looking at it. It's like a barrel of bombs, which were like immune to most things. And then he's got a lot of health. I was like, okay, I've got this setup which does massive damage, like the point blank shot and things like that. So I was like, okay, let's chungus the boss as fast as humanly possible, right? Let's just pile the blight onto him, get him stacked up, get as much damage onto him as possible. And then immediately spawned a bunch of ads and pushed everything around and then rejigged my team. And I was like, oh my god, like I'm in a bad way. And then the bomb went off. It was 25 damage, which was like 3/4 of the HP of my characters, even with protection and stuff up. I was screwed. I was screwed. But I had two... there was a round, I think it was like round 3, where I didn't get a go until the opposing team, I assume because they had much higher speed than me, just cycled through twice. They both got the entire enemy team got 2 turns each before I could even play. And I'm like begging. I'm like, please, can I just play the game so I could do something? And no, not at all. Not at all. I just had to watch in horror as my up front man, who's been there forever, fell and died. And I was like, we're doomed. There's no way of getting out of this. We're down to 3 players. I didn't even get a go for like almost 8 turns. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. And so I had to run away. I was like, I've got no choice. It's either I might as well take the upgrade deficit. I've already lost 1 character of my high-level team with all the really cool trinkets, including the new armor I just got, and save 3 of them and deal with the problems this is going to cause. So I was like, right, escape the battle. It let me escape the battle. I was like, right, we need to get out of the dungeon. Click escape the dungeon. And then it says, in your fear of running away, one more of your characters will die. Like, just the pain and misery of being like, I'm double screwed. I am double screwed. It's going to kill somebody else. And I had no choice. I had to click the button as we lost our strongest healer. With all his trinkets. All the healing trinkets. Oh god, I lost all my best tank trinkets. I lost all my best healing trinkets. But, and this is the horror, it's like I look at the situation, I'm like, this was just the worst. The worst it could possibly be. And the game is so cruel and nasty. And I'm like, is there a bright side to this? And there was. And that's where the game is kind of fair. It's like, you did fight it. We've not raised the town. You held them off long enough for the defenses to be up. Your town did not roll back. And I'm like, there's kind of a good side here, guys. Which is Darkest Dungeon in a nutshell, right? Is there's actually a good side to it. Is, well, we didn't actually lose our upgrades, so we can kind of push forward and we will walk over the skulls of our fallen comrades. And the game threw me a bone, ladies and gentlemen. It randomly procced or whatever is somebody can return from the dead. Pablio is back. The legend himself has returned. Pablio is back. And I was like, this is kind of hilarious as we lost these two guys. And then the guy who caused us so many problems in the past, the redemption arc, the story, like a phoenix from the flames, has returned. And lo and behold, on the first mission, I was like, oh, I can put him back into missions because he even kept his levels. As I put him back in, he immediately got so stressed out that he refused to take part. And I was like, I remember why I hate you so much. I remember, it all happened again. I remember why I hate you so much. I remember. And I'm just trapped here. But, again, it's always a but. It's like, yes, this is horrible, this is bad. And I'm penniless again. But on the good side is, in order to get all these upgrades that I needed, I'd actually leveled up many of my other characters, and now they have the upgrades. So, on the hand giveth and the hand taketh away. The hand giveth and the hand taketh away with such ease and such frivolity. And this is where we're at today, is the return of Pablio, the loss of two of the original starting crew. Only one remains, which is Raven the Plague Doctor remains. 3 of the 4 starting heroes who are the A team, the top level team, have fallen in battle. And I really hope one day they come back. I think you need to leave a character slot open for this to proc and return one of your characters. But at the same time, the emotional weight and stress of this game is something else. It's absolutely something else. And it blows my mind every single time I play it. We're close to completion, I think. My goal is to beat a Darkest Dungeon run. Probably have to level it up all the way. We'll see, because I think that's going to be a huge investment of characters. But we'll see what happens towards the end game. I think we're in, like, mid-game now. Honestly, one of the cruelest but that cruelty in a Dark Souls fashion, that cruelty and darkness and bitterness and frustration also gives you the highest highs ever. It really does. Like, getting a critical heal at the right time is just, it's like Jesus himself is weeping tears onto your game to give you some form of happiness. It's stressful and highs. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. But I think we're getting to where we could start seeing what the end game of this looks like. Wish me luck, my friends. Wish me luck.